Hi, I'm Lucy Steigerwald for Liberty.me, and today my guest and I are going to be talking about country music and libertarianism, which we swear has enough ties together to take up a whole half hour of conversation. My guests today are Seth Wilson of CultWestern.com. Say hi to the people if you want to. You don't have
Hi
to.
to the people.
And also Zach Fontaine, a songwriter and a blogger at RushmoreBeekeepers.com. Say hi if you
Hi,
want.
people.
We're
Oh,
libertarian.
I want to say hi.
Good.
Yeah, don't boss me around.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. No.
So
Go on,
I
go on.
guess general open discussion, starting off with libertarian music and lack thereof, and whether we want there to be more libertarian music, or whether it's just invariably going to be, awkwardly earnest ballads about Ron Paul or something like that. I don't know, whichever one of you wants to chime in. Zach, I know you write songs. Have you ever written a libertarian song?
I wrote a couple, actually, and I only wrote them I did this songwriting project where I wrote a song a week for a year. And I think the only reason I actually released them was because I was releasing everything that I wrote at that time. And they still kind of make me uncomfortable. I mean, one is like, one is basically just about how, how politicians are a bunch of liars. Not that original, I guess. And the other was I guess partly libertarian, but I try to sneak in little things here and there, I guess, as opposed to actually writing political songs, because I tend to hate political music.
Is that because it tends to be, leftist, or is that, well, I guess there's exceptions, but to me, I think it's kind of like the lack of subtlety in political music that's usually the problem. If it can be,
yeah,
that's the problem.
I agree.
I want libertarian music, but if it was explicitly libertarian, it would be weird and awkward, and it would be a ballad about Ron Paul. I think the line,
right.
Yeah, the line is kind of tricky.
Isn't awkward earnestness the only emotion you can associate with Ron Paul, though?
That's so true, especially with the Iraq stuff. I was reminiscing again recently about, bless his awkward old man heart. Just awkwardly earnest. That is the epitome of Ron Paul. That's a really good point.
I can't wait till we get gifts. We can get a gift tattooed on us, because It's Happening is going to be awesome.
Every libertarian
For a tattoo.
in the world is gonna pick that one. It's true.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great.
All right. So more specifically, I guess, what kind of I could talk about punk, I suppose, but that because that's another very political genre. But country generally we think of as being pretty solidly awful and conservative. That "Have You Forgotten" song that rhymes "forgotten" with Bin Laden.
Oh right. Oh yeah.
Well, I think country is pretty populist genre, and it's as populist. It's as far left or right as sort of populism runs at that moment in the country's history. I would say it definitely seems to veer right. Then you have guys like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson, who grew up under the New Deal, and so they're, even in the more conservative moments, I don't think Willie's conservative about anything, but even in their more conservative moments, it definitely hews to that sort of New Deal idealism and sort of populism. Yeah.
There's the outlaw country thing, and then there's the Nashville country, I guess. And the outlaw is supposed to be very, it's Steve Earle, and we're gonna have Steve Earle sooner or later. But
I'll have a whole segment at the end.
To get more specific about libertarian tinged songs, I like to take songs and sort of use them for my own libertarian ends, not pretending that Steve Earle is himself a libertarian, because obviously he's not. But Copperhead Road, one of my favorite songs that I can't stop listening to, it has a great, a story element to it, which which kind of is the great thing about country music. But you know, it involves, it mentions the draft, it mentions war, and at the end it has this implication that some sort of awful confrontation with the DEA is about to go down.
Right.
I guess.
Well, I mean, I think that song's kind of interesting because if you talk about sort of like the more right or libertarian streak in country music, I think that song and that album in particular, because it's a theme album or a concept album of sorts, really sort of hits on the most libertarian current in country music, and that is, you know, sort of Scots-Irish mountain people who, you know, spent generations always trying to get that much further past authority and want to, you know, live up on the mountain and do their own thing. And I mean, because he's sort of tapping into that culture, he's tapping into that sentiment. And then, I mean, Steve Earle, especially back then, was pretty anti-authoritarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
you go, Zach, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, talking about that, you know, that same thing about putting, you can kind of find libertarianism in a lot of different music, but you know, as far as like the left, it tends to be like, you know, anti-war songs or that sort of thing, or, you know, of course, not as much in country music, I guess, more in the folk genre, or even like Tom Waits' Road to Peace, I think is just a really amazing, chilling, you know, anti-war song. But it seems like they're, yeah, each, you know, depending on the genre, they have, like, the far right tends to have more anti-authoritarian themes, I guess, while the left covers the more sympathetic, like, civil liberty ideas.
I think that, yeah, that sort of applies. And I guess there's also the question of, like, is just like an anti-authority song, is that libertarian enough? Like, or let's see, Johnny Cash, we've mentioned Johnny Cash. Obviously, he wasn't the jailbird that his reputation sort of, you know, the myth built up around him became, but he really, like, legitimately, if you read about it, like, he was worried about people in prison, you know, kind of cutting edge worried about people in prison, and that was a pretty radical thing, even now, and especially back when he was playing Folsom Prison in San Quentin. And then I don't know, thinking of like Old Crow songs, I know that they're probably mostly a bunch of liberals, but a lot of their stuff, they have their, you know, their bootlegging songs, and they have their murdering songs. And then they have something like I Hear Them All, which is a pretty damn peacenik song. I don't know. I guess I just come back to, like, I want there to be libertarian songwriters like Zach. I mean, who give us libertarian songs, but, like, we don't know it, so it's not going to ruin it for the people who are secretly going to be listening and soaking in the subtle rays of anti-authoritarianism.
Right, because you could tell a story that's, you know, that could be funny or could be sad, you know, and is kind of based in libertarianism, I guess. You know, I mean, there's definitely plenty of material as far as the drug war is concerned, you know, and
yeah, my friend actually once wrote me, like, an awkwardly earnest punk song that was against the drug war. It was literally my birthday present. It was very nice of him. He's not a libertarian. He's, you know, sort of a bleeding heart hippie who writes very earnest songs in his own right.
Yeah, I mean, because there are people like you know, Remy, who I really enjoy, you know, who does you know, does a lot of stuff with Reason, but that's definitely, you know, geared towards, you know, libertarians. I mean, he has some songs that are just kind of funny, but, you know, a lot of the stuff he does with Reason are they're definitely, you know, for libertarians and something that libertarians will enjoy, and other people might, but yeah, it's geared towards that audience, as opposed to just addressing the themes within a normal, you know, non-political song, I guess.
I think any song about authority is probably going to have to default to being sort of anti-authoritarian. Just like it's hard to write a good song about being happy. It's probably hard to write a good song about being being an authority figure, and
Yeah,
or in praise of authority. So I mean, just any song, it's naturally going to take that anti-authoritarian song, and it's like
Ballad of Joe Biden. I'm
that
gonna write
sounds
that.
awful.
I actually like the Onions version of Joe Biden a lot more than the real Joe Biden. I would listen to the Onions Joe Biden song any day. It's actually just Van Halen too. That's all it is the entire Van Halen 2 album. You know.
Going off of that, Seth, but like the thing is, there are pretty damn pro-authority songs, and I mean, again, that horrible "Have You Forgotten" song, and I can't remember who wrote it.
Daryl
People
Worley.
usually.
Daryl Worley, did you say?
Yeah.
Did he ever have any other songs?
Yeah, he was sort of a mid-tier guy in the late '90s, and really sort of more traditional, and that was really sort of his last. I mean, just as I'm remembering this, I could pull up his Wikipedia and find out differently, but that was really sort of his last big song because the current changed, sort of the musical taste changed so much after that. Yeah, like Lee Greenwood. I mean, nobody remembers any Lee Greenwood
Right,
song
of course.
except for God Bless USA.
Yeah.
Right. So there is this habit of that kind of song. And again, that horrible song was between 9/11 and the Iraq War, I guess. So it was. I don't know if it was a hit, but I know that Toby Keith and I guess Alan Jackson had their really painful post 9/11 songs.
What was that, like Boot in the Ass or whatever?
Yeah, Toby Keith had the Boot in the Ass song, but Alan Jackson's of the three. I find Alan Jackson's the most because it does what good music and good art is supposed to do, is take something big and make it personal. And it was just a guy sitting in his house thinking like, oh my God, things are terrible, and I'm watching the kids outside. So I mean, of the three of them, I think that one didn't start macro and end macro. And
it's almost better in that sense because it's not, when there are songs that kind of seem to address the nation or try to speak for the nation as a whole, like that makes me really uncomfortable because maybe it's the anti-authoritarian.
Yeah, unless it's your like. But
it's not as appealing. Yeah, and you don't want to listen to it. I just don't.
Yeah, you got to be Amphetamine Dylan to write like a "I'm Addressing the Nation" song.
Right.
He's the only guy that could do that.
Exactly.
Not that I'm saying it, I know for sure that Dylan was doing that, but.
Yeah, but probably.
In case he's watching. Hi, Bob. Love you.
Hi, Bob. We're your friends.
Yeah, we love you.
At some point, I wanted to. Do we have more? I don't want to control this too much or too little. So.
Oh no, it's okay. I was gonna say, I think on our like earlier conversation, I had mentioned this, but there's this country singer, Casey Musgraves, that I don't know if you've heard her.
I've heard the name a lot, and I've been meaning to look her up just because she's been talked about a lot.
Yeah. And she's definitely more in like the pop country type world, but I think she has, I think there's some of that's pretty good, or at least you can get like a couple like really nice songs off an album.
She's definitely the closest thing like millennials have to like a traditionalist country.
Right.
Thing,
Yeah, because you can hear a lot of that in her music.
Yeah. The production is really good. It sounds very country, but it doesn't sound dated. And the lyrics are cool. They're very she's good lyrics.
Yeah. And that's the thing I was thinking about is a song like Follow Your Arrow, which is I think that was like that wasn't the title song on the album, but it's.
There's a second. No, it's the title song.
Is it?
Oh. No, it's not. It's not.
Because same trailer.
All right, nerds, focus.
Anyway, sorry. We're focusing. It takes.
It was the second single off the album.
Yeah.
Music dorks.
But it's and I guess she played some like LGBT support events and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the song actually mentions that it's okay for people to be gay and it's okay to kind of do your own thing and love whoever you want to love, and actually talks about smoking marijuana in there, which is really interesting for someone in the pop country world. And I don't know how
Oh, yeah,
popular
sure.
she's remained since then, but it's very. But when I heard the song, I definitely heard the libertarian chant in it. Not that we're all a bunch of pot smokers, because I don't, I drink
Republicans
coffee.
who smoke pot. Of course.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that. I love that argument. Republicans who smoke pot.
Mhm.
But hearing
What's
that
wrong
was
with that?
striking to hear. Yeah, that's fine. Do whatever you want. But it had this real, great, like a real emotional take, kind of on the, live your life how you're gonna live it, and
See, that feels libertarian to us as libertarians, and then you invariably find out that someone's, a democratic socialist or a Democrat. They read a song
Right.
about living your life, and then they vote for Obama the next day, and that
Right.
sort of thing.
Live
So,
your life. We'll just control some of it.
right. I mean, and that's why I guess it comes down to like you want a libertarian to be writing these great songs that are accessible to all these people, and you don't want to find out, I guess, at the end of the day that they support various awful things.
Right. And
I
really,
want-
I think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was just gonna ramble some more.
Okay. I was just, I guess, curious, branching a little away from country, but I was thinking of anti-war songs and protest songs, and I don't know this might be a little too like minutia-y, but like what makes Masters of War awesome, and like Paul McCartney and Neil Young's post 9/11 music just appallingly bad.
Oh,
That's a
But
good
like,
question.
what it's like you approach this political thing, but you can't. If it's too vague, it's no longer about these
Yeah.
issues. But
Well,
if it's
Right.
too specific, it becomes sort of bizarre.
I think you either have to go, you either have to be very specific, and I think one of the all-time great country anti-war songs would be "Mama Bake a Pie" by Tom T. Hall.
I don't
Which
know
is-
that song.
Check it. You really need to Spotify that as soon as we're out of here, because it's
Okay.
really great song.
Right now. Commercial break.
as all Tom T. Hall songs are. But that and well, Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town, which is a guy who's lost use of his legs in Vietnam and his wife is running around on him. It's kind of also an anti-war song, I guess. But they're very, very specific story songs, which is sort of how country, if it has a message, if it has some sort of sort of larger message, it will usually pin it on some sort of every man like that. So I think, and that's really plays to the country's strength as a genre, is that sort of everyman specificity. And like Masters of War, I mean, Dylan's probably bullshitting us all. He said he was not paying attention to Vietnam when he was writing that. He was reading old newspaper articles from the Civil War. But I think in that case,
That's totally true about Dylan. Yes.
yeah, and he could be bullshitting us, and if he is, I mean, that's kind of part of his brilliance. Is
And the song's still
brilliance
good, no
in
matter
that
if
stuff.
he's bullshitting us or not. I mean,
And
that's-
because
maybe
it's
that's the point.
it's vague on it's vague at such a huge remove that song could be about pretty much any war ever, because
Right.
True.
just the sort of the facts don't change.
Well, it's like about the military-industrial complex as a whole, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So,
you
and
could,
that's-
somebody in Athens could have probably sang that about going to war with Sparta. So, you know,
Right.
I mean, it's just to me it just hits that baseline. That's such a basic themes.
hmm
Right.
And-
And he's played it at like, that's one of the songs, that he's had on his, playlist at shows for years. Like, when I saw him, he played it, and it seems like every live album, there's a version of it
Yeah.
somewhere. So
I didn't
think
know he
that
still
has-
played that. That's good
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah. He still plays a lot of stuff off his Christian albums too, which is
Yeah.
That's probably not good.
I like the Christian trilogy a lot. So.
I haven't
Yeah.
ever listened to his super Christian stuff, I don't think.
So Lutheran Cummings pretty good.
Alright.
Yeah. That's good.
I mean, my fear about this sort of conversation we're having is that it all comes down to like the je ne sais quoi of awesomeness, and you can't, or like the obscenity test, like you know it when you see it, you know it when you hear it, like,
Right.
like when it works and stuff. Let's see.
And it's hard because it's so like, I mean, music. I think music as a art form is so interpretive that, unless you're kind of saying something outright, it's interesting. I mean, like there are a lot of songs that we could see as libertarian songs that, and then you see an interview with the writer or whatever, and they have this totally different take on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to have that aspect of it too, because you don't really know what was, I mean, like Bob Dylan, making up, well, what we think he was, he was, paying attention or not paying attention. It's
Well, I mean, I always appreciate Dylan for his like ridiculous refusal to be anyone's messiah. I mean, obviously he's a weirdo, but like his refusal to be anyone's, political messiah. And I remember they did that Rolling Stone interview with him like 2 years ago.
Right.
And he just like they were trying to get him to say something pro-Democrat, and
yeah, they kept asking about Obama. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gave such a just a kind of bland half sort of statement that they just ran with like it was.
They want. I mean,
Right.
they want him on the team. That's kind of the thing. It's
I want Bob Dylan on my team.
We all know
Who does
we all know
that?
he's a libertarian. Let's establish that right now.
I mean, I think part of this also is the idea that most culture, I guess, unless you have a caveat of some kind, like culture is seen as liberal, and that's movies and music too. And I think that's conservatives' problem often is that they try to overcompensate for that sort of invisible liberalness, and then they sound ridiculous, like the aforementioned 9/11-y songs. And I mean, do you guys? I don't know. Do you guys think it would help to have sort of libertarianism more mixed into the culture, or does it not matter because if we had 1,000 libertarian songwriters, the point would be that we were already there?
I think there's a lot of. I don't think it's in country, but I mean I think a lot of hip hop is pretty libertarian. But,
That's a good point, actually.
and Big Boy actually voted for Gary Johnson. So
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But and I mean I think it's there. I think with alternative country, because you're getting so many people who are coming from like basically aging out of like college rock to punk rock and needing to play something a little more quiet because you're it's tinnitus. It's probably always going to skew a little sort of college lefty. But I think so long as people get speeding tickets or worry about carrying a joint in their pocket or something like that, I mean, there's always going to be that anti-authoritarian je ne sais quoi, that sort of anti-authoritarian thing to music. I mean, country music is inherently an outsider music. It's defined by its otherness. It's not, it's the people who live out there. It's those people over there. So I mean, it's always going to have that aspect of that sort of outsiderness and that sort of anti-authoritarian.
I hope so. As long as
Yeah.
Nashville.
I mean, now it's all about like hanging out on tailgates with jailbait and drinking like store-bought moonshine. But
we still have a ton of, I mean, outlaw country-esque in anti-mainstream Nashville. Like, there's so much of it out there, which is delightful, of course. So it's not the state of country music isn't as dire as some.
Oh no, it never is. I mean,
Yeah, there's always, I mean, there's so much more of every type of music now. I mean, more than there ever has been, which is awesome. It's just, how much do you want to look for it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's, I mean, part of the problem too is, that libertarians don't always want to be called libertarians, and they don't always want to be part of a team as much as like Democrats or Republicans or other like high-profile political groups do.
Right,
there's
herding
so much,
cats.
yeah,
right,
because
right. So there's
it's an ideology.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I was just gonna say there's that something ingrained in libertarians, which is, which a lot of them would probably disagree with me,
It's an ideology based on disagreeing. I mean, it's not an ideology based on like, well, I don't want to do what you're telling me to.
Right. Well, plus, it's gonna really,
or at least
hard for a
individuals.
libertarian musician to play the White House, so maybe that's part of it too.
Right.
No.
I mean, supposedly Dwight Yoakam's a libertarian. Like, I think the only political statement he ever made was in support of a sort of a minimalist Jeffersonian democracy.
It's a good start, Dwight. Good start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he doesn't do interviews much at all anyway, so which is probably smart. But,
That rebel.
yeah.
He's acting like a libertarian.
And then
Really.
there's a guy. He's not like by the book libertarian, but he's a Canadian guy from Alberta. His name's Corb Lund. And Alberta is sort of like the Texas of Canada, from what I understand. Salt ranches and oil. But he's got songs about like the gold standard and police brutality and things like that. And he's kind of an interesting guy. He's a song about prepping, which I don't know if prepping is inherently libertarian, but
maybe not. But I still immediately want to hear that song. So
yeah. So and I mean, he's from Canada. He'll say nice things about the national, the single payer health care or whatever. But at the same time, he's deriding fiat currency as being counterfeit, which actually he's putting out a new album, comes out July 1st here in the States. It's Counterfeiter Blues, and that song is about sort of this fiat currency.
Nice.
We'll
have to put that on your list.
Dollars don't much anymore. Yeah. It's gonna be a good album. So looking for an introduction to that guy. That's the way to go.
So I guess I have two more queries. Did you guys happen to read that alternate story that I sent around and also was tweet rolling my eyes about?
Yeah.
For the people at home, let me recap for the people at home. This
Did
entire
Joe post about that? Oh, sorry.
Entire alternate piece is basically, I was in Trader Joe's and I heard "Under My Thumb" by the Rolling Stones, and in the wake of Elliot Rodgers' gun massacre with misogynistic overtones, I decided to complain about it, and then they told me no one ever complains about it, and the end. It was a very strange, I mean, it was very inane, but it also sort of brought up, these questions, like songs about bad things, which is so country music and so blues as well. I guess, murder ballads and all that sort of thing. A general query, I guess, both, do we need to stop being political, like when we feel the urge to write alternate stories about, the Rolling Stones being terrible, or is this, sort of the tolerance of libertarianness of music? I don't know. I'm trying to get to a point here, but do you guys have?
I just want to know who in this day and age is surprised that the Rolling Stones are kind of sexist and shitty, and their sort of interrelations with women, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to hear someone talk about holding a girl's hand sweetly, I'd be listening to Beatles, and I don't listen to
early
the Beatles.
Beatles, yes.
Yeah, early Beatles. Not Maxwell Silverhammer.
Put Seth on the list.
Yeah.
I loved Maxwell Silverhammer when I was 10, which is kind of creepy in retrospect.
Right. Well, see, yeah, there's another one. It's this cutesy song, and that's such a strange, of all the songs you would hear and think oh, this is horrible and inappropriate in the wake of this, tragic incident. Under My Thumb is such a weird one because it's so. I mean, the lyrics are silly. Sure, it's a mean song, but it's silly, and I don't think anybody. I mean, and before I read them today, I don't even know if I knew what half of them were. Mm-hmm. And now that I do, I don't know that it makes any difference. It's just a silly song, and I don't think it's gonna, it's not gonna incite anybody to violence, which I think is apparently seems to be the implication there.
I don't know if that's the implication. It's more it's
insensitive, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
It wasn't even bold enough.
Songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's Under My Thumb is so vague. I mean, if how does he have this woman under his thumb? To me, it's just dumb. And the thing, the Rolling Stones, especially in that period of time, is they're just copying Muddy Waters and Slim Harpo and all those guys as hard as they can. And it's I hate to tell you this, but old blues guys, not that nice to women. Old blues women, not that nice to women. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's the blues cliche and sort of the country one is shooting your no good woman down. But there were reversals. There's Frankie and Johnny is a reversal. There's a couple of other ones where the woman shoots her man down. I don't know. I like
Pretty much
songs
all of
about
Miranda
bad
Lambert's
things.
career.
Yeah.
What was that?
Pretty much the entire Miranda Lambert catalog is about shooting men. So
Really?
yeah,
Okay. I know I haven't listened to her much either in my time,
Yeah.
but
me either. So much. I mean, I just
but
know
you
like all
still
the big
know
singles.
because you're a
about-
nerd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all her big singles are about that. So.
Okay.
And if I lived with Blake Shelton, I'd probably want her to shoot him too. So.
Yeah.
I mean, but like I like songs about bad things. I made an entire Spotify playlist about murder with a little suicide mixed in.
I listened to it.
Yeah, I need to find that one.
And this is sort of political. To object to this kind of music is in itself political. This sort of liberal, softy idea that like, well, we shouldn't talk about that is not nice, and maybe if we talk about it, bad things will happen. And this maybe leads into the final point, which is not that we should turn off our brains about politics, because politics sucks and it hurts people, but that music and culture are so much better than politics. And let's just take a moment to appreciate how much better. You guys aren't in, the libertarian movement, as far as I can tell. You guys kind of seem to do your own things and think a lot about, obviously, music. I don't know, just can you give me a little bit about, like, why your lives have more country music and less thinking about, Eric Cantor in it?
I grew up in rural West Texas in the 80s, so I don't know that I had much of a choice. But, I mean, I grew up in El Paso, and, I mean, the Marty Robbins song, especially back then, it's going to get stuck in your head. Grew up in a farming ranching family, so that's kind of what we listened to. It's what we did. Fields and riding horses across the desert and all that. Music that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think I found music much more appealing than anything political people I knew was doing. And maybe that's because I'm from Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is pretty close to El Paso. But it's one of those places that, at least at that time, seemed to have, or when I started hearing about politics, it was all, I mean, kind of like the rest of the country, where it's this even split between, Democrats and Republicans, or left wing and right wing, and I just really didn't want to be in that fight, I guess probably, and I just had more fun things to do, I suppose.
I mean, are you guys like? I have other people I know are sort of like you. I have a amazingly Southern friend from Virginia, and I've been to a bunch of Old Crow shows with him, and he's introduced me to some other bands that I love. And he plays, a little string band thing, and he calls himself a libertarian. It's not like he hasn't heard the word, but he just sort of lives a libertarian life, and avoids certain laws, and doesn't murder people because he doesn't want to, and that sort of thing. I mean, are you guys are you libertarians because you're not interested in controlling other people, and that's sort of it? There's like a subtle point I'm trying to find here.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
For me, definitely, growing up in the country, growing up in a rural environment, definitely made me not want to control people, also not want to be controlled, and and then I live right, where I grew up. It's right on the border, like the river's in my front yard. Zach has seen it, and I mean the border
right
wall's
there.
in my front yard. So whether I want it or not, politics is sort of right there, and when you sort of investigate it, you can't look at that border and not wonder, and then the more you sort of look at it, you think like, well, all the problems we're having a half a mile away from me. If we legalize drugs, they'd probably go away, and we change the way we handle immigration, then people wouldn't show up on my doorstep having been beaten by their coyote. So, I mean, that's sort of definitely an entry point into it, and also just growing up being able to run wild in the way.
Except that Yeah, Seth didn't have any rules when he was growing up. He doesn't need any now.
Stay within eyesight of the house.
Yeah.
And it was flat. You could see a long way. So.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's where a big part of it comes from, is I don't, I think like you were saying, I don't really feel the need to control anybody. And I think that comes from not wanting to be controlled. I kind of want to be, left alone to an extent, and I think that's what makes it kind of hard to get politically involved, because it's like, just leave me alone, which probably is not good.
No, I think it's a good impulse. I mean, you can't, and some of my favorite libertarians, like, my embarrassingly excessive hero worship towards Radley Balko. Part of that is, and the man lives in Nashville and he loves country music as well. But people who don't nerd out about politics, people who give it kind of the side eye, and either they involve themselves because they want to do some good and try to get the government to bugger off. But the impulse to ignore politics, I think, is such a healthy one. And that's one of the many reasons that I like you fine gentlemen.
Why, thank you.
I try not to talk about politics a lot because I just don't want to make every single person mad. And
well,
I think
of course.
I'm also just like contrary by nature, so I think that has a lot to do with it too.
Well, it's whatever you're doing, keep it up. But I don't know. The takeaway here is that country music is awesome, and
I would agree.
Yes, more awesome than politics.
That's the subtext and the text of this particular event. I think we should probably wrap this up for today. I think that we should talk again sometime, possibly about conspiracy theories.
Yes.
And you guys got to send me some lists that we can put up beside the podcast, so the people can learn more about what they should be listening to.
Sure.
Yeah, I have one ready, I think.
Good. So send those to me, and I guess I will stop this here broadcast. But Seth and Zach, thank you very much for talking to me this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.